Clock. Do we have a chaplain, please? No chaplain? Okay, we'll dispense with that, and we'll go right into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the July 20th, 2026 meeting of the Burleigh County Commission to order. First item is roll call of members.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Here.
Commissioner Munson.
Here.
Commissioner Bakken.
Here.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yo.
Chairman Bittner.
Here. Next is the approval of the agenda. Any additions, subtractions, anything you want to chat about? I did get a text from City Commissioner Connolly that he doesn't get off work until 6, and he wanted to know if he could speak on one of the items under the item 10. And I said yes, if the meeting was still going on. So if he's here and we're still meeting, then we'll give him a chance to speak. Otherwise, we'll just move on.
Chair, do you want to move item 10 to the last item then, just in case?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
So we'll move 10 down to,
All of 10?
since I'm not sure which one I should look.
I would move to approve the agenda with that addendum.
Okay, moving 10 to the end,
Yes.
ahead of other business probably.
Yes.
Or maybe in front of the state's attorney at least.
That would probably be more appropriate because we'll usually,
If we have to go into
yeah,
Oh,
executive.
yeah. I would
Okay.
amend my amendment.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Consideration of the July 6th, 2026 meeting minutes and bills. Commissioners who had a chance to look at the bills?
Mr. Chair, I approved the bills this afternoon and would move to approve both the meeting minutes and bills.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes and bills. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Next is public comment. It's restricted to Burleigh County residents and landowners. You know the rules. Anybody wish to speak under the public comment period? State your name for the record. Sign in.
There we
Is there a
go.
little green light on?
Now we got it. Commissioners Kay Laco, Burleigh County resident. I have a public comment on one of the agenda items, so I would leave it to Chair if you would want me to wait until then. It is item 10 that you've moved on the agenda. So would you want me to speak now or later?
Typically, it's appropriate to speak during the agenda item.
Okay.
This would be for items that are not on the agenda or on a previous meeting.
Well, I will come up at that point then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Anybody else wish to speak?
Jim Cook, Chairman and Commissioners, I've been here a couple times and now it's been 4 months since the roads up in Gibbs Township. There's been no progress whatsoever, nothing's being fixed. Just what a lot of ours out there, they're 11 inches high. Thank you. Asphalt. And a couple questions is if someone's not familiar with that area and they run into that damage of the car, who's liable for that? Just a question.
Yes,
Because,
in the end, I can answer that. In the
Okay.
end, that would be Gibbs Township.
okay, so can I ask why nothing's being done? Seriously, I mean, I've called 2 times and they say we're aware of it. And they're just getting worse. There's more and more as this breaks up, it's getting bigger and bigger. People are going around, dodging. So I'm just really curious, are they out of money? Are they not going to want to fix these things? Are they going to wait till it gets worse, it costs more? I mean, is there
I
anything
think
the county can
I
do?
think I can shed a little light on that for you.
Okay,
Just my understanding is that, first off, it's a township road.
it's what?
Township road.
Right,
Okay, so they contract with the county to do the repairs. I don't know the status of their finances. I do know that that's been an issue for them, and they've had conversations about that. But what is happening right now is that county staff is focusing first on county roads and county projects. So when the
Okay.
county got behind on one particular project, which would be Apple Creek Road right now, I think, Dan, you can probably clear that up for us, but they got behind, or not necessarily behind, but some other priorities got ahead of it. So it's just simply, we don't have the manpower and the equipment to be all places at all times. So they're prioritizing. If there's a safety hazard, they'd sure appreciate knowing about it, and I think we'll have them take a look for sure. However, the priority is the county roads, then it would be the township roads after that.
sure. So, you know, when they did the big damage, they hired an independent contractor to come out and fix that at first.
Yeah, that was the township footing the bill on that, so
Okay.
that would be a question for your township board.
Okay, well, they only just always say we're aware of it, but I'm just wondering if any, so that helps the explanation.
Yeah,
And
that's,
if they do want to come out and look, it's on Dakota Country Drive. It's 11 inches tall. So if someone does hit up, you know, crawl over that with a vehicle and that night and don't see it, they're going to get some damage, so.
right. Well, we'll sure have them take a look and make
Yeah.
sure that it's in some kind of safe condition, but
All right.
any actual repairs is gonna,
Thank you.
yep, you're welcome. Thanks for bringing it up. Anybody else wish to speak under public comment? Anybody else wish to speak under public comment? Last call for public comment. I'm going to close the public comment period and we'll move on. The consent agenda. Commissioners, you got abatements, special event permits, or raffle permits? Anything you want to talk about in particular or pull off the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcock.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Next is a public hearing, page 7 on a U-Mary bond. Who's got that one? Welcome. Please state your name for the record and sign in there, please.
Kevin Dykema.
Kevin, welcome.
I'm Jerome Richter with the University of Mary.
Welcome.
All right, Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for having us in with this agenda item. We've been here before, and we appreciate Burleigh County's support of the MITA bond request on behalf of the University of Mary that Bravera Bank will be leading the effort on. Tonight, our purpose here is to adopt the resolution for issuance of the MITA bonds. And the reason that we are here is so with the size of the MITA bond being $60 million in total, we need multiple municipalities to commit their bonding authority for this. Burleigh County has committed some of those, some of your bonding authority, as have these 3 other jurisdictions, so City of Braddock, City of Wilton, and City of Linton for this first tranche. The reason that we need this resolution adopted and the intergovernmental agreement is that the project and the funds are being expended in Burleigh County. So Burleigh County is the host jurisdiction for this project, and so you are basically allowing the other municipalities to also participate in this project with their bonding authority. So that is kind of the high-level piece of what it is. This is for a total of $34 million of the 60. So I will tell you that we will be back because we have to have another meeting as a public meeting with Burleigh County for the other $26 million. That'll be probably in September when we close the second tranche of that funding.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the resolutions or any other explanation that any of the commissioners would care to have?
Well, I think you provided a pretty good explanation. We did have a question about what was the purpose with us having this for the other political subdivision.
Just
So
the
that
jurisdiction,
we
it's in
appreciate
your
that.
jurisdiction, so you
Right.
have to
Yep.
approve the others
Yep.
joining on or piggybacking on to
We
this
got-
county.
Right. Okay, commissioners, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Hang on, commissioners. This is a public hearing.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I neglected to mention that, and I was going to insert that right there. So this is a public hearing on the UMary bond. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Again, this is a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? Third call, public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners,
I have a question on this.
okay?
Is there any improvements you're going to be doing to properties within the city limits?
No, these would all be on the University of Mary's campus.
Pardon me?
All the improvements would be on the University of Mary's campus.
Okay.
No.
County.
Oh,
Here in the
county.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Yep. Okay. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcock.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Item number 8, Sheriff Lieben, OHV enforcement update and a quarterly update. Welcome, Kelly.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. There, now it's on. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Actually, both items tonight, I think you'll appreciate hearing. So I'll start with the ATV or OHV enforcement, kind of the status. Commissioner Munson had spoke with me, asked me to kind of provide a update of where we're at and what's transpired over the last couple months. So basically, if you remember, in about May or so, we talked, and I had stated that we were going to dedicate some of our overtime budget to being more visible out there and ultimately doing more enforcement. And so over the course of May 1st through last Friday, these stats are pretty current as of then. So we've done 10 overtime shifts. That's 4 hours at a crack with 2 deputies. So a total of 80 hours of overtime enforcement. The estimated cost on that, and I say the estimated, is because we don't know in our department, everybody deputy through sergeant is eligible for overtime pay. Once you get into lieutenant, you're exempt from overtime pay. And so we don't have lieutenant and above working the overtime shifts. We don't know who's going to take these shifts, so we kind of base it off of a general estimate of what it's going to cost us based on the average salaries for those deputy, corporal, and sergeant pay grades. And so we had an estimated cost of those 80 hours is about $4,960. When you look at all of the activity, and when I say all the activity, I'm talking patrol generated and the overtime generated. During this activity period, May 1st through July 17th, there was 17 citations issued. Of those 17 citations, the citations were for exhibition driving, registration violations, driving on the roadway, helmet violations, and no OHV certificate. So there was quite a few. When I looked at this, it was primarily for driving on the roadway and exhibition driving, which is what we heard from a lot of the people through the public comment. During that time also, 11 formal reports were taken. 5 of those reports were for violations that were either cited in the juvenile court or referred to the state's attorney's office for further prosecution. Also in that time, we generated 40 what we call calls for service. So they don't rise to the level of a formal report, but they warrant documentation so that we can review them later. Of those 40 calls for service, 28 calls for service came in the month of May. So I don't want to jinx us, because I thought we were there before with our other patrols we did out there. But we have seen a very steep decline from what we were seeing in May to what we're seeing currently in July. For example, in July, I can tell you, I think we've had one report taken, a formal report, and we've actually had, I believe, 2 calls for service and 2 citations. So definitely a decline in what's happening. Of these calls for service, basically we broke them, when I look at what they were for, we had, a lot of them were citizen complaints. Some were cleared, some were unfounded, some we got a call, the activity wasn't currently occurring, and a lot of them ultimately end up being negative contact. That's where a citizen reported a situation, our deputies responded, but by the time they get there, depending on distance or call activity, nothing was going on at that time, and they couldn't find the people. We had OHV-related questions. We had some of the calls for service were deputy-initiated extra patrol, which is a plus. When they're free and had time, they went to those problem areas. We did have one that was from an OHV rider, initiate a complaint against a landowner. Again, that didn't result in charges. And then a couple of them were deputy-initiated educational opportunities. That's how I would classify them. Basically, they saw ATVers or motorcycle riders. They stopped out with them and educated them on the laws of what's permissible and what's not. And ultimately, we even had one deputy thank you, where a citizen flagged down our deputy and thanked him for what they were doing out there. So I had spoke with Commissioner Munson, shared a Facebook post with him. No matter what we do, I always say we catch it from one side or the other. And so there was some anti-Sheriff's Department posts on Facebook over our activities. But I go back to my friend Representative Todd Porter when he said one day at the legislature, he said, we got the Republicans mad and we got the Democrats mad. I think we're making progress. And I would say the same thing here. Any questions on the OHV activity?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
Sheriff Lieben, I've had several phone calls that we have dispatched, and this number is the same, 12 officers to the desert on specific Saturdays or Sundays for enforcement. Have we ever had that many officers on duty that could go out to the desert to do that at one time?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Munson, fellow commissioners, actually, I wouldn't say 12. That seems probably a lot. But I'll give you a little history of our desert enforcement, and it's kind of what we talked about with OHVs. So if you go back in my career of 36 years, I can tell you the desert of today was nothing like the desert of the early 90s and even before that. And so the problem is a lot of times we would have a deputy go down there on patrol, and I can tell you on like a 4th of July weekend, that deputy was outnumbered. There was a common belief you could do anything in the desert and get away with it. And that probably, unfortunately, wasn't far from reality. Our normal patrol deputies, we wouldn't ever have really enough where we could saturate that area. And so there was always something going on at the desert. It was about probably, I would say, the early 2000s that we kind of shifted our focus. And even with some of our overtime enforcement, instead of just sending 1 or 2 deputies down into the desert, what we started doing was what we called, targeted enforcement. And so basically, back in the early 2000s, what those operations looked like then, instead of 1 or 2 man cars, we would get a big group of deputies. We would actually send game and fish down there or across the river to spot in advance. And then the highway patrol would work the roads outside of the desert. And so we would send a big group in there that we could address problems. And for example, Game and Fish would spot across the river with binoculars people using drugs on the sandbar. So when we rolled in, they'd tell us which car, which tent, whatever, who was engaging in that prior to our arrival. So we have made huge strides in the desert area because of those targeted enforcements. That's all money that we have got from the Corps of Engineers to conduct that.
But have you done that this year?
I don't know for sure. I would assume we've
Yeah.
probably had some operations down there just to stay on top of things.
That was the concern, if you will, that we're down there often in that same thought process yet this year. And I thought I would have heard that from you before the residents.
I wouldn't say it's often. We probably do that 2 to 3 times a year. Obviously, we have active patrols in that area just because the problems we've experienced over the years.
Thank you.
Well, I jump in on that a little bit, but I think that if there's a law enforcement presence, it's going to be because of a problem,
Absolutely.
and I think that part's pretty clear. I think if I go down there to the desert, chances are pretty good. I don't care how many officers are down there. I kind of like the fact that they are.
Right.
Because I hear too many stories about problems down there. So I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the quarterly update.
Okay. The quarterly jail report, again, I think good news. One of the things, and we've kind of been talking about this for a while too. So just a quick recap, our average daily population when we opened that facility was about 300. Post-COVID, we were probably down in that 185 range. And then after COVID, we started seeing, that number go back up. Well, then when like Burleigh and Morton weren't having the same high numbers we had for whatever reason, that's when we turned to looking at these contracts. And as you recall, I've talked to you about more staff, which equates to us being able to bring more prisoners in under these contracts. So just to give you a look, our average daily population is 403. That was our most recent number. We actually have hit in the 430s a couple times, which puts a little stress on the operation, but we're able to manage it between the prisoners that are coming in that we can't control, the ones being arrested in our jurisdictions, and then working with our contract partners. The good news is, as of the end of June, we have billed $4,023,221. If you look at 2025, at this time we had billed $2,085 and $367. And then you go back to 23 on the backside of COVID, we had billed $976,067. So really where the jump went from this year to last year was we implemented that state contract of DOCR prisoners. So we have 120 guaranteed beds in that facility, and that's what's equating to this number. Our alternatives to jail continues to fluctuate, and if you remember, that's our alcohol sobriety testing programs and drug testing programs. Currently, that number's a little higher than we've seen at 290, but again, the good side is those people aren't in the jail. And the other good side of it is they're not in the jail at our expense, because these would be our prisoners we'd be paying for. Staffing continues to be an issue. We ended 25, I think I told you, fully staffed. I thought, okay, we made it, we're here. That didn't last long. So again, we're continuously hiring. But again, I keep saying the good thing is we're not losing our people because they don't want to work for us. We're losing them because we're giving them experience and they're going on to other law enforcement jobs to advance their career. Like I said, the contracts is what's driving our revenue, and we're really, I think, hitting our stride with these contracts. Our staff is getting up there. We're, constantly hiring, which keeps us from falling behind because really that's what dictates how many of these contract beds we can have is how fully staffed we are. And ultimately tonight you're talking budgets. We have in our budget for additional detention officers, which will allow us to continue to bring in more contract beds and generate more revenue for Burleigh and Morton County. Any other questions on that?
Commissioners, any questions? I'm not seeing any.
All right.
Pretty thorough.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sheriff Lee. Okay, item number 9, Fanatics Red, White, and Boom event update. Still got all your fingers and, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I did not do was shoot them off. We hired a highly trained pyrotechnician. So, commissioners, I just want to start by saying thank you. This year, again, to celebrate America's 250th birthday, we came to you a few months ago to ask for some special funding to an event you've supported before, but this year we wanted to make it bigger and better, to have a real celebration here in Bismarck and Burleigh County, and I'm excited to report back to you that not only was it a great success, but it was again a huge increase actually from last year's event, and so just wanted to share a few of the stats, highlights, and again just share my compliments and thank you to you guys for that. So this year again it was held for the second year at the Community Bowl. We did some enhancements, as you know. We added a drone show, which was fantastic, an increased showing for the fireworks. We also added some more family activities. So started at 6 o'clock, had inflatables, a bunch of different craft stations, areas that kids and families could go to of all ages. We increased the security and safety just with an event like this. There's some expense to make sure people feel safe and feel welcomed. And the statistics were pretty amazing. We actually ended up having 8,700 people used a system called Placer AI that shows cell phone data in the area. 8,700 people came inside the bowl that night, the MDU Resources Community Bowl, and then there was over 11,000 people on campus at some point in time that night. So, I mean, we were driving around in golf carts, just up outside in the parking lots, anywhere there was grass, there was lawn chairs, lots of coolers. I don't know what was in that coolers, but people looked like they were having a good time. And just people were out celebrating. And I'll say this as someone who goes to a lot of Larks games, a lot of events in our community, the demographic was incredible. I mean, truly, it was every walk of life, every age. One thing I think we really found was there are a lot of people, a lot of mobility issues. That's one area we'd like to probably put some more funding is golf carts, volunteers. People just wanted to be somewhere for America's birthday. And so, it truly was a collection of our community, and it was just an awesome night. So I think that's the main highlights, but just wanted to, again, see if there's any questions, but just again, say thank you. And not only, again, maybe a little plug for next year, but not only was it a special year, but I will just say this. Our community, I think we need more things like this, things that are free, things that anyone can come to, but they're not just maybe thrown together. They take real planning, they take real purpose. They're different. They stand out. And I think that's what made this special was anybody could come, but it was something that people really had never seen before, right? So again, I just want to thank you. We could not have done it without you and a lot of our other partners, and excited to see where we can take this thing in the future. So.
Commissioner Bakken.
John, thank you for putting that on for the community, and great event. I stopped out there, and you're right, the crowd was absolutely phenomenal. The entertainment, the food, everything was pretty much went off without a hitch, and really good event, and way better than Morton County, so and Mandan. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Nice plug.
Yeah, he had to do it, didn't he? They had a pretty good show on July 3rd. Got to give them that.
Yours was better. Ours was better. We were better.
All right. Well, thank you for the update. Really appreciate it. I don't see any other questions. So
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, we're going to move to item number 11, County Interim Finance Director Schmidt, preliminary budget review. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Bittner and Commissioners. So I'm here tonight to present the 2027 preliminary budget. You should all have a binder in front of you. Now, even though you've all done this more than I have, I just want to quickly walk through the process of what we've done so far and what the rest of the budget process looks like. So we had all the department heads submit their requests for what they wanted, and then we had a budget committee comprised of our county administrator, Mary Singer, myself, Auditor Mark Splonskowski, and then we actually had our treasurer, Britton Robb, help us as well. And so we went and almost everyone presented to us, and then we had a discussion, got some additional information that is in your budget book now. So there's some, even just notes on some of the departments, but also then we made some recommendations based on our discussion. One thing I want to point out, and I'll say it again probably when I get to the memo, is that the budget itself is based on the department head requests. So I didn't want our recommendations to be the default and have something maybe not get discussed by the board. So we're keeping that process the same, where we're starting with the department head requests. So if you choose to adopt any of our recommendations, that would be something we'd have to amend before we approve the budget. And then tonight, obviously, I'm here presenting the budget. The deadline for the preliminary budget is August 10th. We have to set the final budget hearing, the public hearing for the final budget, and then obviously approve the preliminary budget. And again, that's by August 10th, but we do have another meeting until then. So if we don't get it done tonight, that's fine. I know last year it went 2 meetings as well. And then in the off time after it's approved, we'll continue to refine the estimates. As we get more information, I can come up with better numbers for how this year is going to end and maybe some revenues for next year. And then we'll have that public hearing, which again, you guys will set, but is already on the schedule for September 21st. And the same thing there, the final budget has to be approved by October 10th. And so we have that extra meeting in October if we need it, where after we present the final budget, have the hearing. If we need more time to come back, we can do that. And then after it's approved, we'll just move to my office, we'll calculate the mill levies and get the tax statements prepared. So if anybody has any questions on the process, I can stop or I can just head right into the memo.
Any questions on that process so far? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I'll try not to read this word for word, but basically I'm here tonight to present the preliminary budget. Again, as I said, it was prepared and coordinated by the budget committee. Excuse me. And as I said, I know I just said it, but I'm going to repeat it. The department head request, what the department has requested, that is what's in there. That's what makes up those totals. As far as the property tax caps, what we did with the sales tax for the general fund, since we are in kind of a unique position, I did the exact same thing that our finance director did last year, where I basically started with the levy, assuming we didn't have the sales tax, did the cap calculation, and then subtracted the sales tax off of that to come up with a cap. Because we are still decreasing, so it's hard to say exactly what number we'd be shooting for, so that was the reasonable way to do it. That's what we did last year as well. And then for most of the other funds, I did just take a 3% increase. Ran them individually, even though it is an entity level, it's the whole county, ran them through individually to kind of see where those would land. And then the exceptions to that are, because we did have that additional sales tax come on, one thing we started with, highway, the budget committee, we had suggested that the highway levy be increased. The capital improvement fund, we have that in the budget as well. And then there was just two of our other budgets, the senior citizens and the weed board. They are currently looking at some budget deficits. We have used reserves in the past to fund those, but they're running out of reserves. And so those are increased just to keep a baseline, not to add any reserves. And then again, I guess I said it twice in here that the general fund, I guess here's the dollars. So the cap calculation came to $23,750,000, but we're anticipating about $22.8 million in sales taxes. We're going to get a deposit here at the end of this month and then one more month, and then we'll know the final number by the time we have our final budget hearing. And so that's a levy in the general fund of $930,000. And then the other kind of just things to note here for salaries and benefits for staffing, the department heads total requested 6 additional FTEs this year. And then we did prepare the budget, the salaries and benefits, and I think this already came before the board. We operated on an assumption of 1 step increase and a 2% COLA. And also a 4% increase in the health insurance premiums. And so that's a total increase of about $2.75 million. And that actually is just a 7.22% increase just on salaries, not on the total budget. And then lastly, just have the total levy for all funds. It came to $12,775,000, which is a decrease of a little over $2 million compared to last year. And then that little section at the bottom, that's just the general fund. So revenues are anticipated to be about $41.4 million. We have expenditures budgeted, again, the requests at $45.7 million, for a difference of about 40 or 4.2 million. Now, one thing I want to note there, and this is very similar to last year, is a good portion of that is just a budget deficit. We, at the county, we budget very conservatively and spend very conservatively. So the big things that always kind of result in where we over budget, where we have money left over at the end of the year, is salaries. We budget for worst case scenario. So, for example, if I have a single plan, if a vacant position is there, we have a family plan budgeted. Now, a lot of our newer employees, if they're younger, they just get a single plan, but we never know. So we budget for the full family plan. We budget for all the vacant positions to be filled, which, as we know, that doesn't always happen. And even if there's turnover, you have a few months maybe where you're waiting to fill that position, so you have some salary left over. So those types of things. And then there's always some contingency in everyone's budget. Everyone budgets for maybe a vehicle they wanted to replace, but now they don't need to. Or maybe there was a desk that I, wanted, but I found one at surplus property for cheap. I got a chair at surplus property for like $20. So we like I said, we spend very conservatively, but we do budget for worst case scenario. That way it's already appropriated. And so that's why last year, I believe, and I have it on my computer here, last year I think the shortfall was about 3.5 million, but we're looking to not have any shortfall basically for 26. Now, this year, because it is an increase, especially with that big chunk in salaries and benefits, I would anticipate about a $1.5 million budget shortfall in the general fund. Looking at our reserves, that would put us, I believe, at the end of 27 at about 30%, which is approaching where our fund balance policy says that we should try to increase reserves. So that wouldn't be, that wouldn't put us in a danger zone, but it's obviously not sustainable to do that forever. So but again, that's an estimate. And then obviously, as I already said, as time goes on, as we get closer to the final budget, I get more data to work with, so I get a better idea of where the year's at. So if revenue estimates go up or down, I'll have those, and so we'll have some closer to accurate numbers as we get to that final budget hearing. And then now, that's all I have on the memo, but just to reiterate again, we have to set a date for the preliminary budget, or the final budget hearing, and that's already set at 9/21, so we'll just need a motion for that. And then this budget has to be approved by August 10th, but again, not tonight if we don't want to, because we do have another one. And then the one reminder that I forgot over here was just that this is the preliminary budget. This has historically been the starting point. We can't go up from the preliminary to the final. So I know some things, I think last year the bond for the Provident made it in and got removed afterwards. So if you're considering, like as far that general fund, if you think there's a chance you'd like to increase the general fund levy, that would need to be done tonight, because if we don't do it tonight, we can't do it for the final budget. We can't go up. I know that was a lot, but now I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, commissioners have questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Woodcox.
Couple of questions. What was the general fund balance at the end of 25?
So, sorry.
You said about 30 million.
No, 30% would be where it would land at the end of 27. The ending balance was about 17.8 million. So that's where we started this year.
Right. And the 2% cost of living, I think that's a little low. What, Pam, do we have any idea what 1%, if it went from 2 to 3, what that would cost us? She usually gives me that figure, but do we know?
She said around 300,000 or 400,000.
Okay. I'll put down 400.
I'm going to need a little bit of time to look through this budget. I just saw it in the email, and I got to the first page, and something else came up, so I haven't had a chance to spend any time at all with it. So I think what we should do, unless you commissioners are in a hurry, I'd like to put it on the agenda for the next meeting and have a conversation then.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'd rather not approve something I haven't had a chance to look through.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Woodcock.
Run that past me again about the general fund balance. If we want to increase, so we're more comfortable with the range that we're in, is that what you mean?
Yep. So with the general fund, I just stuck with that. Like I said, it's our own version of a 3% cap. It's kind of a self-inflicted cap, so to say, because we brought on that sales tax revenue, so we don't really have a cap. So that was again based on basically taking the sales tax out, doing a 3% calculation, and putting the sales tax back in. So if you wanted, you could increase the general fund levy. I didn't want to put that in.
And how do we do that?
You would just move to approve it and vote on it, and then I would change it in the budget.
Yeah, I'm not at all in favor, and I warned about that during the legislative process, that just automatically increasing everything by 3%, I think is a mistake. I don't believe it's appropriate to the citizens, and I think that we need to be careful with that. You know, some things are gonna probably go up more than 3% in certain budgets, but just to assume that your budget, not yours, but I mean, just in general terms, I like it for the math part. I think that's an appropriate path to take, so we know where we don't want to exceed. But I think just automatically saying, well, your budget's gonna go up 3%, whatever department it is, I just don't think that's legitimate, so. But I'd like to go ahead and review that and go through it again at the next meeting.
Sure.
Commissioner Bakken.
So, and I'm not a believer in that 3% cap because I don't think we fit into the state formulas anymore. But where, because we don't know what the legislature is going to do this next session, got an inkling, but we're not sure. Where does this budget, as it currently sits, leave us for if it stays the way it is with the state, with the 3% cap that they're imposing?
Well, you as a board still have a few options for flexibility, I would say. Last year, just as a recap, you did, we chose not to bond the Provident renovation. We did use the reserves for that, but you did pass the refunding resolution that's necessary to allow you in the future if you would want to bond that. I think, and I would double check, so don't quote me on this, I think you have quite a bit of time. It's even a year after completion of the project to decide to do that. So that's one option for flexibility. And then that, we don't have one yet, and it is in the budget this year, a capital improvement levy. That has some flexibility. I know it's specifically called out that you could use that to fund some highway projects. Obviously, if there's any general fund things that would be considered capital improvements, you can use it to fund those. And so that's more, those capital improvement funds are designed as savings accounts. And so, you know, if we accumulate a balance in there for projects, you know, I know, I'm looking at our county administrator, if we get a strategic plan, then things can be shuffled around in the plan. You know how that goes. You have a 10-year plan and you decide to move half of it. So there is flexibility there, but if nothing else changed, you know, as I said, the budget ending balance would be about $13.5 million, but realistically, it would be closer to $16 million. And so, I mean, obviously, if we did nothing, that $1.5 million shortfall would get bigger every year. So 5 to 10 years, you'd use all your reserves. Or cutting expenditures is obviously the other side, but.
That's my biggest concern, just because we don't know what's going to happen to the legislature. So as long as we've got some flexibility in there to be able to maneuver, then I think that's important.
I'd rather we didn't start out with a plan to dip into reserves.
Right.
Yeah.
We gotta do whatever we can to not be doing that activity.
Yeah. Well, a great example is the highway department too, because it seems we've got projects that come up all the time. It's like, let's make sure they're funded correctly so that we're not coming back and addressing, oh, well, we got a project we got to dip into. We got a project let's get their budgeting done right, because that's one of the biggest and most important budgets in the entire county. So it's making sure that's done
Commissioner
correct.
Munson?
And it's also our biggest complaints.
Yes.
You know, and so I noticed in here, the highway budget is less this year than what was last year approved, and that makes me nervous because, like Commissioner Bakken said, we're back asking for general funds every once in a while. And of all people, we need to be proactive. I think Commissioner Schwab has done a good job about being proactive with bridge maintenance and roads.
That saves money.
That saves us
Yes.
money long-term, and I think that's very important that we look at that. Mr. Chair, one other question I would have for the committee. The job development fund was recommended to go to zero. I'm curious as to why that.
Okay, Taylor?
One thing I will say is what we were looking into, and that's in your packets. One of the things we were looking into, especially not to get off topic, is some of those weird budgets that we've had, the supplies budget, the publishing and printing budget. And I know some of those they're created in Century Code because there's things where the board has to provide, I think it's as simple as pens, paper, stationery. And so one way to do that is to have its own budget. Now you could still do that, and what our recommendation was is just put it in the treasurer's budget, because it's typically been in the auditor's budget. So you don't need all these different budgets floating around. And so one of the things when we were looking into the Job Development Authority is that it's not a requirement, it's something you have the authority to do. So it says you may levy funds for a Job Development Authority, not that you have to. And so I believe that was one of the reasons, just so you're fully aware that it's not something the county is required to do. It's something that we have the option to do.
Okay.
So we have the ability to add that back.
And it's still in there.
At next meeting.
It's currently in there. We recommended to remove it, but again, I based the department head request based on the kind of status quo.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody probably knows, we don't have enough employees for available jobs already. So developing more jobs, job development is kind of hurting us. I don't, we can't seem to, I hear it on an almost daily basis from cohorts and other companies and everything else, that we just have this severe labor shortage. So I think that may be something we need to, employee development authority, maybe not a job. Anyway, so my point would be that it's probably something that has outlived its usefulness. Okay, anything else you want to add? Commissioner Woodcox.
Just a couple comments. You notice the 1% sales tax brought in 22 million. I'm rounding them off. 22.8, and we were going to levy 23.7. This 1 cent sales tax that was passed by the citizens is going to virtually eliminate. Less than $1 million will be levied for the general fund because of that sales tax. So that's a phenomenal event for the citizens of Bismarck, of Burleigh County.
That was the conversation. That was the reason that it came up. That was the whole point.
And it worked.
I am so happy about that. I could just jump, if I could.
My second question: how are we doing on the budget for the Provident Life Building in general? I know we're using general fund reserves to supplement that. Are we okay so far?
Still in line, yep.
Okay.
And I just want to jump in quick there. So the general fund reserves were transferred to a capital improvement fund for the Provident building. So they're already out of reserves, and it was transferred just enough for what the bid was approved for. So they're already set aside. Okay. So that's already there.
So
and that's not part of.
There's no contingency balance for the general fund.
So yeah, the general fund is not. We've not agreed to transfer any more money out of the general fund for that. So those numbers I gave you are already with the Provident money moved out.
Okay. And what was that amount? A ballpark. 7 million?
Got to be close to 17 million.
I was going to say 17 million is in my head.
Around there.
Minus the ARPA.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going into it from all kinds of different funds and whatnot. But the initial amount, the initial bid amount has changed upward some because they ran into things like asbestos and.
Well, that's what scares me is that old building that you're remodeling. Who knows what you run into in that?
And I don't have the number in front of me, but obviously that money was transferred there, I think, at year end last year, so it does earn interest. And now, as we spend it, it's going to earn less and less.
Right.
But that's where some of those. I think we had a conversation about something else. Maybe I don't remember exactly what, but there is that interest in there that can be used as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Schwab.
That $930,470.
Is your mic on?
Okay, that $930,000. That would be the actual tax that we'd be levying?
Just for the general fund.
Okay. Well, if things go good with the garrison diversion, that'll be probably close to zero.
That's a good point.
Because that'll knock out 760,000.
Is it still in here? Is it still in this budget?
So that's not in our budget.
No, it's not in our
They're
budget,
basically
but
just like a
special
township.
revenue.
They tell us what they're going to levy, which is just 1 mil, and then we levy it.
But it's gonna take down the tax for the people besides our budget.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Kind of a Christmas gift. If Christmas ever comes.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the budget for? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Great job, incidentally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know who else attended, but I attended the meetings for my portfolios, and they ran that very well. So Taylor and staff did an excellent job with that.
Very good. That's a good pat on the back. Congratulations, you guys. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, we're going to move on. Commissioner Schwab, Missouri Valley Complex Weed Control Report.
Yes. I think You guys also all saw, I think everybody saw the pictures on the back. That's what you call a fire hazard. And when I drove through there, I just decided we got to do something immediately with that. So I hired a company to go and do it. And it's done now. And the next meeting, we will have photos of what it looks like. But the thing about it is that we can't keep having this problem arise. And at the next meeting, Darren Johnson will be here with options what to do with that land, how to get it back where it should be. And then I'm going to recommend that we let him take care of the weed control out of there, because the committee isn't doing it. So he said he could supervise it.
Okay.
And we got our sprayers. Now, getting back to this, I'm the company that went in there, Bismarck Excavating. And the total bill on that is $3,630. 33 hours of work. A lot of it had to be run across twice, some 3 times. That's how bad it was. So I'm going to be doing the bills next week, and I'm going to give you a bill for, I believe, $341, no, $214 to cover the fuel cost. So you're getting a free ride on this one, but not next year. But I do want to be paid for the fuel. It's 33 hours of work, and if anybody complains about it, well, not much I can do. But that was a field decision that me and Darren made when we were out there. We looked at it, said, geez, somebody throws a match there, it would be just terrible. So I need kind of a consensus. Is that all right to build $214?
From the weed board to
From the
complex?
Missouri Valley Complex.
no problem.
I think we should. I think it's good initiative.
Yep.
I would really caution you about hiring yourself, but that's fine for me because of the fuel thing. But I think as a minimum, reimbursing the fuel is no problem to me.
I would move to,
Well, it's either that or
I would move to
the next
reimburse
time,
the fuel
next,
cost.
The next time around, that's what you'd be staring at.
You have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to reimburse the fuel costs.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Munson.
if I can. So back in December 14th, an email was sent out specifically to Commissioner Schwab, Marcus Hall, and Darren Johnson, asking for assistance to come up with a plan to take care of Missouri Valley Complex and the Park District properties based on what the Park District had done for us in the past and what we should move forward with in the future. Marcus Hall responded and had some great ideas. Steve Schwab turned me into the state's attorney, accusing me of open meeting violations, which he was explained that that was not an open meeting violation. So last meeting, when Commissioner Schwab was standing here talking about how we needed to have a better plan and this all could have been avoided, the attempt was there in December of last year to head all this off at the pass. But Commissioner Schwab chose to avoid it, or instead of avoiding it, try to prosecute me for open meeting laws. So I take a lot of offense to what Commissioner Schwab brought up last meeting and currently this meeting. And I know it's grandstanding and it's vote getting and it's trying to figure out a way to get elected again. And that's fine. I can do that. I can handle that at this meeting and I can have those conversations. Now, do I agree that we should pay the company that did the mowing? Absolutely. Should it be Commissioner Schwab's company? That's a little unethical, but I still would be okay doing that.
Okay,
No, I'm not done. I am not done.
good, keep going.
So
Keep digging.
if the portfolio holder would have been involved in the conversation up front, that'd be different. It's no different than the last meeting we talked about the stuff down at the Kimball Boat Ramp. I already had a dumpster delivered that I had to pay for that got nothing put in it because before any conversations with me as to what Commissioner Schwab was going to do, and I do appreciate Commissioner Schwab's help in cleaning up that garbage. But now I have $287 worth of dumpster fees that go to a waste to the county. The plan was in action. The portfolio holder was in action of doing the job. Had there been a concern or a conversation in December or January or February or even March, this could have all been avoided in the first place. So I'm not saying no to paying for the company that did the work. In fact, I think it's not fair to only pay for fuel. I think someone was going to get hired to do that job. But the fact that it was done without, Chair can call it initiative, but the plan was requested for assistance and I got nothing. So I'm not really excited about that side. I'm done. You can go ahead.
You had an
Go ahead.
illegal meeting through the emails.
Not according to the state's attorney.
And I'm going to ask you, how many times have I asked you to drive through these places? 7, 8, 9? And you refuse to cooperate with any commissioner to do this or work with any commissioner. It comes to a point, if you're not going to work with the commissioners and I see a hazard, I'm going to tackle it.
It's not any.
I don't
It's just
want
one.
the fuel money. I will refuse it now. I will refuse it. And I thought it's a good deal. You're saving $3,300. Well, if that's so important to you that you want to run me down for fixing your mistakes, fine. But to say that we can leave that stuff up there and, oh, I did this, I did that. I couldn't even respond to your email because you had 2 other commissioners on it. That is a meeting.
No, it was
Yes,
not.
it is. Yes, it is.
The attorney said it was not. It was a request
Well,
for you to review
if you
the
read the
information.
train,
to have
if you take the training that I took, it says right in there, and I went back and checked it, that was an illegal meeting.
Okay.
So
No, we're
to,
going to move on,
to
gentlemen.
blame inefficiencies on me, when I see a problem, I tackle it. I don't fool around. If you're going to do a job, toughest thing about doing a job is getting started. And then the second toughest thing is doing what you're supposed to be doing to finish it. And I cannot drive by and see hazardous and dumpsters full of maggots and say, where in the hell is the people responsible for this? I am going to take care of it. Just like Chair Bittner, when we had that snow deal and the roads were real bad, you told the highway department, get out there and get all the gravel on the roads you can. I didn't complain about that. But I can't check in with you because you do not want to talk to any other commissioners about this. You're so married to that Bismarck-Mandan Park Board, Bismarck Park Board. And I have told you, get off the park board and represent the county. If you don't want to do that, well, but to sit and run me down and say I'm not doing my job.
I never said you weren't doing your
I
job.
did my job. And if there would have been a fire out there, who would have taken responsibility for it? Now, at the next meeting, Darren Johnson and we have talked about it, and I asked him to come up with a plan, because it's all got to be either reseeded or turned back to production. There's no grass hardly out there. And also, you're going to be hearing from Dan. We are looking at roads down at the desert that are going to be gravel. We can't do them yet, I've got people call me, well, okay, fine, but part of those roads belong to the state, Game and Fish. We got to find out, and it sounds to me like they are paying for maintenance on them roads. Till we get the okay from them, so we know who's going to pay for that.
Okay, that makes
We're
sense.
kind of at a standstill. That's in the works.
Okay. Very good.
But I do
You
resent
know,
the
maybe-
fact that you're trying to put the blame on me that nothing's getting done, because you, sir, are the guy that is not responding. The last time I asked you to go through this stuff, you turned around and walked out of the meeting room upstairs, didn't even answer. Well, if that's your attitude, I can't help it, then I'll act alone. And I
right.
will not take any money for this.
Okay, well, we
Period.
do have a motion and a second. We do have a second, correct?
I second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. I think, in spite of the personal differences here between the two of you, that it's fair for Burleigh County to certainly pay for your fuel on that thing. And
I won't take it.
well, you can turn
So
it down.
withdraw the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
You can turn it down,
Well,
Commissioner.
that's
say
not,
you-
I'm not going to withdraw that motion. If you want to donate it, feel free, but there was a service provided, and
I tell you what,
given
okay.
fuel costs right now, that's a minimum.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner
When
Wood.
you say you paid for it, you mean you personally paid for it?
Yes.
The fuel.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
And
and
the other $3,000, whatever it was,
That would have been what it would have cost you to do what I did out
yeah,
there.
machines and labor and that's.
So
right,
it's-
I realize that, but is that your company that did that?
I've never intended to bill you guys. Yes,
I
I
did
did.
that
You'll,
in-
you'll get the photos next week of what it, next meeting, what it looks like.
I'm trying, I think the county and the complex should be paying for not only the fuel, but whatever other expense was expended, because it's a complex problem and it's a complex expense. Whether you want to take it or not, that's up to you. I don't know anything about that.
I don't want anything. That's the way it's gonna be. I will refuse, period.
Okay, well, we're going to take action on the motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes?
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
No,
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. What you, yeah, I understand the whole conversation. I just want you to know that I appreciate you in the initiative in doing that. And also, I think perhaps we could have some discussion about things that need doing around here at the table prior to them getting out of control. I think that we've had discussions in the past about utilizing the highway department, and that's outside of their wheelhouse. I know we have contract people engaged for the standard mowing, because I saw them out there mowing, matter of fact, today, with a machine with probably not a big mower like he had, but, a similar kind of thing. I do note that there is additional weeds and whatnot, that in addition to that particular area, we focused on that area simply because it was the seeded areas. And I do know the fairgrounds has other weeds that we really didn't talk with Darren about, so we need some additional involvement there. And
Darren and I met on site. We went through the entire complex.
Oh,
Yep.
okay,
And his contractors were billing me for us for doing all of it.
yeah, okay, so there's already something in place, because some of it looks
Yep.
like it hasn't been hit. And
Okay.
Well,
as
some of
of-
this gets resolved with the discussion when we get to the point of a county park district as well, so at least that would be my hope.
Yeah, I don't see that as being
Mr.
kind of a
Chairman,
different,
we are still the weed board, is that correct?
yes.
Correct.
we are.
I think need to go, just like this controversy here, why don't we go back to having a weed board?
transparency. Darren
Transparency?
Johnson does not want to have a civilian weed board. He likes it the way it is, and I asked him. I
Well,
said,
then he reports to you, and then you're making decisions that may be beyond your ability, that we should know about.
Well, I'm not gonna wait around
No, I know that.
for
I
a
realize
week to
that's-
get rid of a fire hazard.
That's what makes
There's
me
such
think we
things
need to
as
have
field decisions.
That's what makes me think we need to have a weed board. Otherwise, you want to call a special meeting of this board to decide whether we want to spray some weeds. That doesn't make sense.
Well, do you want Darren then to come in and give you the options? And and at that time, we can give him the authority to take care of the weeds next year.
Sure, I think
And then we
should.
don't have to worry about it. He's the most overqualified guy in the county to do it.
Well, he's certainly qualified. I think, that, yeah.
I figured out what a dandelion looks out like now. I know what they are because I see them all over town. But
Well,
I still love saying I'm a weed officer.
Well, I don't know that a weed board or a civilian weed
Well, it's-
board would have made any difference to this conversation because this.
We should at least
we did-
discuss it, I
We
think.
did discuss, yeah, we sure can, but we did discuss the spraying and whatnot ahead of time. The thing that we didn't talk about was what happens after the spraying. Of course, the weeds are all going to be dead, and it's such a large volume of weeds that it created what I think he justifiably called a safety hazard, you know, fire's danger, so.
I know what weeds you're talking about. They're like this, they're all dead, they're laying down, but boy, that's a weed hazard right there. If that lit up, that'd be like a prayer fire you wouldn't believe.
That's exactly.
So have we eliminated the fire danger?
Pretty much.
You don't think that thing would burn if we got it?
Well, where I mowed, on the north side, there was so much, there were pheasants in there with baby rabbits, this and that.
Yeah.
I'll bet I spent an hour just chasing animals out of the way so I could mow some of that stuff, but it's,
Save the pheasants.
there isn't that high a stuff there. It's mostly grass on the north side. It was the east side that was the worst, really, really bad. So if you go out there, you can drive in from the east going west, and you can actually now see the gardens over there. And that's never happened for years.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't want to sit here and argue about it.
So we haven't voted on the motion yet, right?
We did.
Yes, we did.
Okay, do you want
4 to
any
1.
change to the, okay, all right. Got me lost there for a minute. Any additional conversation as far as any other costs there? I know you mentioned additional costs, and I'm sure he won't accept it, but, you know, I really don't expect commissioners to be paying out of their pocket for
No,
county business.
absolutely not.
I just have a real hard time with that. And the need was great. I noticed that there's just yesterday or today, the extreme fire danger index kind of stopped right here at the edge of Bismarck. And that's over in Morton County and right kind of down around to our south side. So, you know, if you.
Well, they threw a red flag up today because of the wind, so.
Right. And so, you know, we all have to be real aware of what's going on with the fire danger. So if you guys want to do anything with the remainder of that bill or an additional discussion, I just don't want any commissioners to be incurring personal expense. Fact is, I was kind of getting bent out of shape about the things I was having to print. That, all my ink and my paper. And so I'd kind of like to get a ream of paper and maybe a thing of ink out of the county. Which I suppose would be no great big burden. But, and I think you're all probably in the same situation, you know, so I think maybe when we're doing the supplies and stuff like that, we should probably be looking at just getting the commissioner's machine model and whatnot and get them some ink and some paper moving into the future. What do you guys think?
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I think we can make that happen. That's a small thing that doesn't require commission action,
Right.
so. Okay, we're gonna move on now. I don't know if Mike Connolly made it here yet.
Nope.
Okay, it's 10 after. He said he worked till 6. I think we're gonna bring up County Planning Director Flanagan. We'll start on these. I do know that it was the Claudy subdivision, so we'll just kind of move that one to the bottom there, and it'll still be in the same thing. So welcome, Mitch.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. First up is the resolution to amend certain ordinances. We have 9 ordinance articles that we're working on to amend due to some of the major changes to our jurisdiction, for one thing, and to bring our ordinances up to a little bit more on speed to what's going on. I would like to say that these ordinance, the intent was not to increase our regulations or restrictions on land use in Burleigh County, but to create more allowances for them. So this resolution is basically to set the stage for a public hearing to the Planning Commission to allow these changes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve resolution to amend certain ordinances.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Munson.
So Mitch, that does put 2 public hearings at the commission level or at the planning and zoning level?
It's either, if you want one there and one here, or both at the Planning Commission, it's up to this board here. The intent is to have 2 because these are ordinances, that you need two public hearings.
Well, we're typically, the public hearings for zoning ordinances and whatnot are all held at the Planning Commission.
Right.
And then the recommendation is forwarded to the County Commission. And we'll hear it anyway, I'm sure, but it won't necessarily be a public hearing, but the public is certainly welcome to be involved. You and I were both at those meetings.
Yep.
I think they've been pretty well vetted already, because we were pretty picky about that, Commissioner Buck.
And the only time I think there would need to be a public hearing at this table is if there was a denial and somebody went through that process.
Right.
Then
Right.
that would trigger a public hearing again as part of that vetting process.
Yeah. There was ample discussion about property rights and increasing people's abilities for building sizes on their property and all kinds of nice little things that I think are overdue. So, my personal opinion is that we just go with our normal process, because this is not it would be different if this was a home rule charter ordinance, but it's not. This is a standard ordinance activity for the county. So, any further discussion? Call the roll.
Did you want to speak on this one, Kay?
On ordinances? Okay, go ahead.
Commissioners, again, for the record, my name is Kay LeCaux, and this discussion helped immensely with the questions that I was going to bring before the commission regarding the process going forward. I had heard differing opinions on if there was going to be a public hearing on the ordinances, and it sounds as though there is going to be additional opportunity, and I thank the commission for that. If I could respectfully request that the public have access to almost a side-by-side document highlighting the substantive changes that have been made. I have listened to all of the hours that our Planning and Zoning Commission went through, a lot of work, as well as our staff. But there's a lot of confusing things in there. So if there's any way to basically highlight that so that then the public input is a little bit more informed.
That's a good point, Kay. I can assure you that the existing documentation is all available online. And because this is a public and open process, any of the changes will be documented as part of the agenda packets,
Okay.
which is certainly available at anybody's request. And in fact, you can request to be on the mailing list for the agenda packets for whatever you want to get the agendas for. So I think there's that answers already in place.
Right. I'm well aware where they're at. It would just be nice to be able to easily highlight. I haven't seen the most final that came out of the P&Z yet.
Yeah,
So.
well, that'll be part of the agenda packets.
Wonderful.
And you can access it
Yep.
publicly.
Yeah, and that was just my question
Okay.
for the public comment, is if there was going to be any further public hearing on it or not, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, there is. That's part of the process. Okay, any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Next, let's skip to Nature View Drive.
Nature View Drive or Claudia subdivision?
Skip to Nature
Oh,
View
Nature-
Drive.
oh, I see. Sorry. I
If
said-
Commissioner Connolly makes it here, he wanted to talk on Cloudy subdivision. As a courtesy, we'll let him.
Okay, this is a variance request for 501 Nature View Drive. Justin Kitson intends to build a 36 by 48 foot, 1,728 square foot accessory building and is requesting an increase allowance for lot coverage. The lot information is the 1.492 acres would allow a 2,599 square foot total accessory buildings. There is an existing one of 1,384. Subtracting that total of coverage, you leaves 1,215 square foot for an accessory building. He was asking for a 513 square foot addition to that. There was some discrepancy on the application because one part of it said 36 by 48, and the other part said 32 by 48. So it was approved for the 32 by 48, but he's asking that additional 300 feet be included in there.
Okay. Commissioners, Mitch and I had a discussion about this. First of all, I'm going to support this. We've long had a history now, working with the City Planning Commission, of approving oversized buildings because I think it was well recognized that the lot coverage requirements were insufficient for most people. They just never increased in size, and people got bigger campers, bigger boats, bigger toys, and so the ordinances that we were just talking about in the previous item are going to increase these building sizes and whatnot. So it's my opinion that this is certainly within the conversation that we've been having about ordinance changes and where we're probably likely to be. And when it came to the question of the two different measurements, I just figured it was a typo of some sort, and I thought it was really immaterial to the actual request. And so I'm supportive of this request.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
So Mitch, he's actually asking for 813, not 513?
The difference is the 1,728 minus the 1,215, which is a 513 square foot increase.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because it was 36 in one spot and 32 in the other, if we
Yep.
needed to cover that 300 in our motion.
I think a motion to approve the 36 by
36
48
by 48.
is
I think I'll make
laid
that
out.
motion to approve the 36 by 48.
Perfect. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Island Park Estates subdivision plat. Okay, we'll get to you next. We held this one for you.
Island Park Estates second subdivision. The owners intend to combine these two adjacent lots into a single lot subdivision. The short plat contains a total of 3.94 acres and will remain in the R1 zoning district. Stormwater management waiver was not required. A paving waiver was not required. At the July 18th public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 9-0. I stand for any questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Next, Cloudy subdivision and zoning changes. And as we noted at the beginning of the meeting, Commissioner Connolly, City Commissioner, has requested to speak on this item also. So go ahead, Mitch.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, this was, the owners, was presented at the July 8th meeting. The owners, Tim and Mallory Clotty, would like to create a 10-acre, one-lot subdivision. They plan to subdivide this 45-acre parcel into a two-lot subdivision. One lot will be 35.24 acres and retain its agricultural zoning. The second lot will be a total of 8.41 acres with a zone change to an R1. Stormwater management waiver was approved on June 6th. The paving waiver was approved on May 4th. At the July public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended approval, a vote of 8-1 for the final subdivision and zone change. This was a rather long discussion on this. We had 2 meetings on this. One was tabled because all the information that we needed to discuss on it. But it came through as a 8-1 approval. Some of the questions, I mean, it was brought up many, many times. Many people talked about this. And the vote was 8-1 to approve.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Mitch on that? Commissioner Buchan?
So Mitch, what was the main dissension topics? What were people concerned about?
The owners intend to put a school, private school there, a nonprofit that is standard of K-1 school, or pre-K, I think. And so they were opposed to having any school nearby. It's, you know, they had stated dust, traffic problems, safety on the highway, safety of kids against livestock.
They're constrained on enrollment on this, though, correct?
They plan on having up to 30 kids.
So a sizable daycare, potentially, if you want to put it in those terms.
Yeah.
That's a small school.
I think it is, but, I mean, I'm not an expert on schools, but there was many people allowed were talking about this, and those questions were brought out. They were discussed, and they were, considerations were made on each one of them.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I knew this was the school discussion. I just wanted, for those that are watching at home that may be somewhat familiar with this but may not know all the details, I just wanted everybody to know that this is that school discussion.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, we're going to give other people a chance to speak. And first would be Commissioner Connolly. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Bittner and Commissioners. I'm also one of the 2 city commissioners that sit on the Planning and Zoning, so I was there for both meetings. And as far as the finding of facts that we all have to look at on the Planning and Zoning, it met all of those check marks, and that carries a lot of weight with things, as it should, because there's a lot of vetting that goes into our ordinances. I think you spoke about some of that just before I got here on another issue. But in this particular case, there's some neighbors that worked together on a petition, and they went around and they talked to one another, and there were several items on that. In the first meeting, the petition was shown on the screens. Mitch requested it a couple of different times. It wasn't shared with him. We actually didn't get it until around noon on the second meeting during the particular day. I did go out there at the request of one of the P&Z commissioners and drove the area. I actually went out there 4 different times. And as near as I could, I checked out some of the petitioners, and I stopped by different residences. The people that were circulating the petition weren't always genuine in how they shared the information. They would share one particular point with somebody they were talking to. They weren't actually reading the petition. I've been part of a lot of petitions, and they kind of cherry pick the items and things. And so that was disheartening, because after talking to, and I'm not going to share particular names of the people because they all still have to be neighbors going forward. But when it came down to it, there's no harm to gun rights here. Everybody will retain their gun rights. That was a big one. There was also, well, if a school gets here, then roads will be built differently. That was something that was floated, and that would be a big process that would have to come in front of the county. And those are the types of things that got people to sign the petition to lay weight, saying we don't want this project. And genuine honesty is the best way to have these conversations, and that's why I wanted to come here, is because it puts us on the back burner when we're sitting, or you guys sitting at the table, when people aren't genuine and share the information. Is bring stuff, vet it out, let us take it on merit, but leveraging people makes it really difficult, and I think that should weigh as part of your decision tonight too. And I'll stand for questions from there. I mean.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Commissioner Connolly? I don't see any. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just say I was one of the 8 that voted yes.
Mr. Chairman, I was out there also, and the only real concern I saw was the roads. And the roads I were on were gravel, which is in the whole area, but they were in good shape now. I don't know about the wintertime or whatever, that was a concern was brought up. But any opinion on from the road situation? Because I thought they were great county roads.
The roads are a little bit soft with the mixture and things, but even in town and things, if I have kids in my car, especially 3 to 7-year-olds, which would be part of the school project, I would venture to say I'm going to be very cautious, because, I mean, anytime you're on gravel, your rear of your tires kind of roll over each other. So given the hills and the topography, I would think that the Claudias would caution people when traveling in those areas, because there's always blind spots on hills, even in town. I guess a side note that I would add, so I appreciate that question, is that I was a foster parent, and she grew up. That's why I'm not anymore. And we deal with a lot of things by way of kids. This is a pretty neat idea that they're sharing, to where no screen time, and impacting kids 3 to 7 years old on the front side of things, before we have to react at a later time. But as far as the roads, they are in good condition. But I was out there on a wet day, and it wasn't worse. It's just you have to adjust for the conditions. We live in North Dakota. Mother Nature's bipolar, and she's always off her meds, so we got to adjust.
That's funny. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Along the lines of the roads, our highway department guys, county engineers and staff did go out and do some checking on the road and see if, there was any particular things that needed to be changed in the event this passes or anything. So they're already well familiar with the concern and any possible things, right? Yeah. Yep. It's not in his head. So thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Anybody else wish to speak?
Good evening. I'm going to adjust this right away before I forget.
Okay.
Mallory Claudy, and I am the applicant. Good evening. You have all heard me talk plenty, or most of you, so I'm going to be quiet, and I'm just up here in case there are any questions.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Mallory?
Mr. Chairman?
I think she faced a lot of questions. Go ahead.
I know you have a similar facility in Mandan or Morton County. How's that working out? Any problems with that? Any complaints or anything?
None. So
and how long has that been in business?
You know what? Would it be all right if I had Cassie come up?
It's more appropriate to ask her.
I'm Cassie Quintus, the lead teacher for Wonderfully Wild, our nature school, and we've been in operation for 5 years. Right now we've had up to 9 kids, and no complaints. The one time in 5 years that a neighbor has talked to me, one of the parents had parked slightly in front of their driveway. They had come home early from work. Usually they were gone, because we operate between the hours of 7:30 and 4:30. So it's when most people are at their jobs, and we are serving their kids.
Okay. Commissioner Woodcock.
do you keep the same hours as regular schools, as public schools? Summertime you get off for 3 months or whatever?
Good question. We operate following the Bismarck Public School schedule going into this next school year,
Okay.
but we do offer summer programming because a lot of our families, the parents work year-round, and we are trying to offer a program that meets the needs of the families, as well as giving kids this opportunity all year. Summers are amazing to be outside. We know in North Dakota sometimes winters get to be long, but summers are so fun.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on this item? I don't see any.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Bakken?
Oh, go ahead.
Mitch, being that it is a school and will be served by rural fire, were there any concerns as far as ingress and egress, as far as fire having to get out there, or EMS?
That wasn't, there was not much discussion on that. Matter of fact, he didn't comment at all on that.
Okay. That would be my only concern, is about the quality of the road in the winter and making sure that, you know, some roads get plowed before others. So if we're going to have a bunch of kids out there, then that's a concern to me as far as the ability to get EMS there.
Yeah, 136th Avenue is a major road, and so is
Right.
41st. I mean, there's busy road. It's a lot of people use it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson?
You know, this brings a unique situation in front of us. If this was just being looked at as a change to residential, we wouldn't have any other conversation.
Nope.
But because it's a school, this has had a lot of other conversations that went around it. And that's what's made it tough for, I think, for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If we were in a simple change to residential, this would have been through planning and zoning. The first conversation, we'd have seen it a month ago, it would have been done. Where now, the Claudies have told us and told their neighbors that they plan on doing a school with it, because as Mitch and I've talked, once it becomes residential by right, it can become a school. You can put a school there. So it's created a lot of interesting conversations within the planning and zoning group, amongst staff, amongst us, and it's.
Well, and I commend them on being forthright with it too, because they could have just gone the residential and just say, "Hey, we're going to plop the school down." It's like,
Oh, that's what I said.
thank you for
That's
reaching
what I-
out to your neighbors and doing good outreach. I mean, that's important in a community,
Yeah.
and I think they
Yeah.
did a really good job of that. So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner
I,
Whitlock?
I did visit with our superintendent, our rural superintendent of schools, Brant Dick, last week, and we have 7 or 8 rural schools that we already manage. This does not come into their jurisdiction at all because it's private, and we have no input technically on what we can tell them to do or nothing related to the school at all. We have no input at all, so with no liability there either, so.
Correct. Okay. Motion.
move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Claudia subdivision and zoning changes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mitch. Well, we're down to State's Attorney Lawyer, Emergency Management, Termination of Joint Powers Agreement, and Termination of Lease Agreement. Commission may enter into executive session pursuant to North Dakota Central Code 4404-19.1, parentheses 5. Julie?
Thank you. The reason that I have this brought up instead of Mary is because we've kind of been jointly working with the city regarding our split from the city in emergency management functions. As you may know, there was a 2004 joint powers agreement that was entered into between the city and the county for emergency management functions to operate together. And they really haven't been doing that. I think one of the functions was that they operate as backup for the other, but it's kind of an outdated agreement. Our emergency manager has been at the Coleman Street building and is now moving to the Provident Life building. And so with that, we had talked about discontinuing that joint powers agreement. So part of that is written notice has to be provided to the city that we want to terminate the agreement. Obviously, the writing in there regarding the termination is that written notice has to be provided prior to June 1 of that year, and then it would take effect basically January 1 of the next year. And obviously the reason for that is budgeting purposes, because if we're going to separate, one of the things in the joint powers agreement is how costs are going to be split. And so they want the written notice, and we would want the written notice too prior to budget hearings being done, and then to take effect when the new budget would take effect. So Mary and I had discussed presenting that to the commission, since that agreement is no longer being followed and no longer needed, that we would withdraw from that agreement. We did meet with the city about that. One of their main concerns, which has been talked about before, is the fact that the city and the county emergency management functions have been co-joined basically at that building on Coleman Street, and we're separating from that building. The lease agreement doesn't say how it's going to be paid. It just says that the lessees are the city of Bismarck, the city of Mandan, and the county of Burleigh, because that lease contains the rent basically for the combined communications center, which is still in effect and has its own joint powers agreement, and the emergency management functions. And so when we were discussing this with the city, they asked for us to provide a proposal regarding how that lease was going to be, and basically the separation of property. So what I'm looking for is from the commission to decide whether or not we want to basically terminate that joint powers agreement. I do have copies of the joint powers agreement if you are not familiar with what that document says, but basically it is separating out what the backup functions would be for the city and the county to have separate emergency management functions, and then how the cost sharing is going to go. That's the purpose of that agreement. Incidentally, that agreement also calls for the operations center to be the operations center out at the airport, which of course they don't operate out there anymore. They moved to this building on Coleman Street. And so since we don't have that joint emergency management function anymore, it doesn't pay to have the joint powers agreement and the split of funds. So that's the first step, whether or not the commission wants to terminate that joint powers agreement.
Okay, I have a little question for you. So you say a written notice or a written thing. It seemed to me like everybody was well aware of this for quite some time. So do the emails back and forth with the regarding this topic constitute written notice? Because I think everybody's certainly been on notice.
So I think they've been on notice that we're splitting functions, but I don't know that anybody specifically said terminating the joint powers agreement. So I don't know what those emails entailed and whether or not that would be effective notice per the joint powers agreement.
Okay.
But it doesn't appear so, because I don't believe anybody said the magic words terminate the joint powers agreement.
I see.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Woodcox.
I remember when we did the original lease, what are we, if we were, we're going to move over to the Provident, are we still stuck with the rent on the previous building? Is that one of the bones of contention?
So the joint powers agreement is what indicates who's paying for what.
Okay.
The lease agreement itself doesn't say who's paying for what. It just says that the lessees, which are the three entities, are getting this portion of the building, and
So we're
this
stuck.
is what it costs. And so it's joint and several, basically, liability, meaning if one party doesn't pay, one of the other two parties has to pay. And we don't want to terminate that lease agreement because we're still part of the Central Communications Center, which has that lease agreement and is part of that lease agreement, which we are still a part of, because that's a separate joint powers agreement. So basically, going back to it, the first question is, do we want to terminate the joint powers agreement? If we do, then all of those questions come after that. If we don't want to terminate the joint powers agreement, then that's a moot point. But basically what we would do if we didn't terminate the joint powers agreement is we're still splitting expenses with the city emergency management for a building that we're not in, which doesn't make sense either, especially when the other functions that are outlined in that joint powers agreement aren't occurring either.
Okay, so
Excuse me, what's the terms of that lease? With the owners of the building.
The terms of the lease basically say that the three entities are jointly and severally liable for the rent for this location.
Forever.
No, for 20 years. But again, it doesn't
Close to-
say who pays
beyond
what. And so the joint powers agreement is what controls who pays what.
So we
But we would
terminate.
still
So
be
we're
part
gonna
of
have a
that
legal
lease.
battle no matter what we do, essentially.
Possibly, which is why when we're talking about the negotiation, because that's the second part, if we do want to terminate the joint powers agreement, then they asked us to basically come up with a settlement agreement for them regarding the lease and the property and things like that, which is what we would enter executive session to discuss, because obviously contract negotiations and potential litigation isn't something we want to discuss out in the open to give away our position and those things, and that's why it would be executive session for that. So again, first question, do we want to terminate the joint powers agreement with emergency management? And my recommendation is yes, because again, we're not part of that building. We have our separate functions, and it doesn't pay to continue to pay 25% of the total operating budget.
Right. Well, I agree with
With
your
the city.
position,
Well,
Commissioner
and
Bach.
having read through it, like you said, Julie, it was really remiss on trying to find what parts were applicable anymore, because it really is not. So I would make a motion to terminate the joint powers agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second to terminate the joint powers agreement. You heard Julie's recommendation. Any further discussion?
Can we hear from our manager? Are you in agreement with that?
Chair and Commissioners, essentially, we haven't been following anything in that agreement since 2006.
Mm-mm. It just doesn't apply anymore.
Does that have a bearing on the legal standing? Probably not. The fact that we're not abiding by it anyway?
Well, it's kind of by mutual agreement, and I know that the joint powers agreement indicates that we're going to do the split of expenses 65-35 with the city, and that was renegotiated in, was it 2006? To 75-25, and so that's the split now, but nobody ever updated the agreement, and so the agreement says 65-35 yet, even though for the past, I'd have to ask
20
Taylor,
years.
how many years we've been doing a 75-25 split, I believe it is now.
Okay.
So it's really
It's been moved.
an outdated agreement,
it-
but it's still in
it's-
effect regarding splitting of expenses.
It just got kind of pulled out of the dustbin
The hat.
and, you know, just kind of thrown into the problem.
How
Go ahead,
about Morton County? Are they, they're out of it? They're
The
on
emer-
the lease.
Well, the emergency management function is just a joint powers agreement between the city of Bismarck and the county of Burleigh with how we are going to manage our emergency management function. And the county of Morton is not on the lease, it's the city of Mandan, because they are part of basically Central Dakota Communications, which is the 911 dispatch center. I mean, it does more than that, but that's what we think of it as.
Okay. Any other questions? It got kind of murky, but that's.
Time to start over.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries.
Now, as I said, the city wanted us to come up with some sort of negotiation for them as to how we're going to settle the lease that we have with the building. And for that, again, since we're talking about contract negotiations and we're talking about potential future litigation, I would recommend that the county go into executive session for those discussions.
I would move that we go into executive session.
Second.
For those purposes, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, folks. We're not going to be discussing any additional business, even though there is other business left on the agenda, so you won't be missing anything, except we will say what we need to say after the executive session. So anybody that's not county staff or essential personnel, please leave the room.